I was spilling coffee all over myself this morning.
I got apple cider.
Oh, that sounds good. I'd be sticky if I did that.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, everyone. This is Martin.
And I'm Shelley.
And we're up to week number 166, which is basically 3 years and 2 months into our backwoods journey down here. And today we kind of want to cover something about preparation. Not necessarily prepping, I would say, but choosing to be better prepared. To be better prepared for what, you may say. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit, about the things that it doesn't hurt to be better prepared for. And before we get started on it, if you could hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. And so let's get started on this. Being prepared, what does that kind of mean to you?
It means no matter what happens, I've got something in place. Like he got burnt. He's not very prepared to test his coffee out first. Now, I believe being prepared, like, you know, when you go to the grocery store and you know there's a snowstorm coming, everybody gets a bunch of stuff to be prepared. Yeah. So I think what we're kind of thinking is just being prepared in general with the food, the way food prices are. You know, 10 years from now, food prices are going to probably be even more.
Yeah, and we really don't know what is happening with that. I mean, we all seen how the food prices went, and prices in general, I guess, over the last few years. And, you know, who knows exactly what. I know there's a new administration now, governmental administration, but who knows whether or not they are going to be able to get that fixed, or at what level they're going to be able to change any of that. We don't know for sure. Right. And so, you know, a lot of what had driven us to look at that whole being better prepared and self-sufficient thing was really the prices and the lack of, what do they call it, shortages that we were seeing in stores.
It was frustrating for me because I wanted to make a certain recipe and I couldn't find one ingredient and I couldn't substitute it. So I was really irritated. Yeah.
So the whole idea, I mean, you've probably heard the story of what sort of drove us to the decision to move kind of back into the woods to become more self-sufficient, and it had to do a lot with the government mandated shutdowns of business during the COVID things, and I'm not going to go into all of that, but that was what really kind of opened our eyes to it and decided that we needed to be more self-sufficient, and that's sort of synonymous with being better prepared. Because we really weren't prepared for that, and it came close to costing us some of our business. So anyway, that is what was the key to move us in this direction. Now, once we got here, we had to set some priorities, because you can't do everything at once. If you want to, you know, start a back to the land journey of your own, you can't do it all at once. You got to pick out the things that are important and start with the things that are important, and then work your way down the list. And when we were down here, we needed to get a shelter. So that's what, you know, the focus was on getting a cabin built. But we also wanted to have some kind of power to it. I mean, we didn't want to go full-blown Amish mountain man down here. So
not yet.
Yeah. And so we spent some time. The very first structure that we built down here was the utility shed, where we can have the grid power come in, which we didn't have at the time, but that's where we wanted to bring it, and the solar plant, which was all completely experimental to us.
And it was fresh and brand new, so we had to learn. And so we didn't want to do everything at once, and so that's why we did a little bit at a time, which brings us to better preparedness for if the energy goes down, the grid goes down, we have power. And I really like that, because that has happened to us about seven times. I mean, we were out mixing one time cement, and the power went down.
And we lost our cement mixer because it happened to be plugged into a circuit that was powered by the grid.
Right. And so we just
We had to plug our cement mixer
switch
into
it
a solar
into
panel.
solar. And it was fine doing it that way.
It worked great.
Yeah.
And, really, okay, so you can have a lot of different attitudes about how you approach something like this. And we've always kind of had the attitude of, when in doubt, just figure it out.
Right.
And honestly, we didn't know anything about solar equipment or powering anything with solar prior to starting this. I mean, I knew that you had solar panels, but beyond that, it's like, well, what happens then? I mean, how do you get from point A to point Z with solar electricity? And so I had to learn all of those things.
So you have a place, you can probably go ahead and put some information for a video that we did on the solar power.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
I'll put
That
something
way,
down there.
a link
below.
will be there for you guys to learn that.
But even honestly, that was, the video I'm thinking of was made prior to us really understanding it that well. So it kind of describes what we have, but we're still learning on that. We started with a hand-me-down system with just a couple of panels, and we had them leaned up against the front of the cabin, and until we kind of figured out how it all worked.
I remember that.
Yeah, it was there for a long time, but it worked. We got it to where it worked, and then we moved it into a more permanent location.
Doing things that way is good, because then you're learning and you're able to think, okay, I think I'm going to try this next. And until you get there, you won't, you got to take the step and think about being prepared before you can even get there. So,
which I guess brings up the point of this video. I'm going to do a short tour of around the property here when we get down here, so that you can see sort of the thought process that went into the prioritizing of the different things that we did here, and really, we've set it in our mind to be prepared for energy shortage or problems, food shortage or problems, really even heating. We got enough firewood down here to heat for the next millennia almost. But I mean, it's a whole package that you have to start thinking of. You can prepare for what happens if there's a blackout, okay, and that's not going to help you with food or water or shelter or anything like that. So you have to think of it as a whole package, and you don't need to be fearful about it. I mean, we're not the societal apocalyptic meltdown of everything kind of preppers. There are days when I feel like we should be, but we're not. We really think of it in terms of practical things that you can do to really minimize the amount of disruption that you can have in your life from problems, whatever they are and wherever they come from, whether they're storm related, weather related issues, or like grid energy related issues or things like that, or supply chain problems. Okay. The better you are prepared to deal with whatever those things are that come to you, the more peace and tranquility you're going to have in your life as you go through life.
And I think too, the things, the food, the water, the shelter, with the food storage. I mean, what do you guys have for food storage? Do you have bins to put your food in? Do you have shelving? You got to think sometimes you got to think of details. And we bought a food processor, or not a food processor, but a freeze dryer. Duh.
Yeah.
Freeze dryer.
You'll see it in the video.
Yeah, to prepare, to put our things in there. And also we did a lot of canning, which we hadn't done canning for
30 some years.
Yeah. So, but we remember back, it was so good when we had all that salsa. That one year we had what?
She focuses on the salsa. 78 quarts of homemade salsa.
I think we were eating it for, of course, we had a family back then, and we were eating it.
It was good Christmas
for
gifts
2 or 3 years. Oh yeah, and everybody liked it, and so you might not like your recipe. So here's a prepared, try a recipe you like, test things out, just try a little bit of things and see if you like them.
So that's the whole point of the video, is choosing to be better prepared. And if you're ask this a lot, but if you're one of the ones that dreams of, either a backwoods or off-grid or homestead type of life, back in the woods like what we're doing here, or if you dream of you just need to find a way to be better prepared for all of the things that can disrupt life, then really at some point you need to make that choice that you're going to choose to become better prepared at really whatever part of life probably stresses you out the most over any kind of disruptions there. So we're trying to encourage you to, it's not that difficult to do. It really is mainly a choice and then some action. You gotta make a choice and then take some action on it. And really I'm going to give us a quick tour of our place and show you some of those things that we've done around here to just help ourselves to be better prepared. We're very prepared in some areas, not so much in others, but we're working on it. And that's the whole thing, is it's kind of a journey and a process.
Yeah, I'd like to encourage you guys too that, you don't need to know everything right off the bat. You need to know some things, but not everything. And as you do this, you'll learn more and more of what you want.
Yeah, and there's nothing out there that you can't learn.
Yes.
There isn't.
Right.
So it's not, none of it is that complicated.
Yeah. And, you may be prepared that, you need to have more meat in your freezer. Well, you may have to look and decide, maybe I need to buy me a deer gun to shoot deer.
Yeah, that's what she does.
Oh,
you see with the last deer gun she handled good too. She
yeah,
got scoped.
I got scoped pretty good.
Yeah.
But it wasn't my gun, and I wasn't used to it, but I hadn't got scoped by my gun, but it was somebody else. It was my daughter's.
And so we use deer hunting because we don't have the time or the patience, or our schedule really doesn't allow for livestock. But even at one point in our lives, we raised livestock with some friends that did have a acreage, and they enjoyed doing that. So we basically just threw in and provided some money and some labor, so that we could share some beefs. And I guess we did a hog too at one time. I think a small one.
Yeah.
So you can do a livestock sharing thing that works out well for that too.
And I do say, we did rabbits one year, and this was a long time ago. And I'm telling you what, them rabbits, they reproduce very fast.
You don't have to know anything about rabbits.
Wow.
Just get them a shelter and feed them and water them. And
get a hutch. And
if you let them get together, you'll have more rabbits than you know what to
and
do.
you'll have meat in your freezer. So you don't have to worry about not having enough meat if you get some rabbits.
Anyway, so we're going to kind of let this part of the video go. We're going to start, I'm going to give you this tour real quick. And if you enjoyed the content, please subscribe, hit the notification bell. Follow me along with this little tour that I'm getting ready to do. And then after it's all said and done, we'll see you next time.
All right.
I'm going to go through the property here that we've got and kind of set the priority and the tone of what we were thinking. Kind of our thought process of how we were setting up and the order that we set up all of our activities down here and our resources, I guess maybe it would be the better way of putting that. And it all kind of really stemmed around wanting or needing to get onto our piece of land as quickly as possible. So obviously the cabin was the first step, but really before that even, we put in we had one thing that we did prior to that, and that was build the utility shed. We're going to go down and take a look at that a little bit because it has our solar equipment in it, and we wanted to be able to have some kind of energy there as we were building the cabin and getting ready to move into the cabin. But then there's all these other ancillary things that we did around here. Like right now I'm sitting around our firewood processing area, and down here, if we are to rely 100% on firewood, which basically we mostly do. We are, we have about a 5-month heating season down here where December, January, and February are the real heavy months where we heat, and then November and March we do heat, but it doesn't require anywhere near as much. So anyway, I'm going to walk through and so you can see the individual components of our preparation thought process and the order that we implemented them so that it made the most sense for us. So in our firewood processing area, we've got wood that we have got cut and split and stacked that's really ready to burn right now. And we don't really have enough here for the whole winter, but we do have what we started a wood shed down here, which will have each one of these sections holds about a quart of wood, and we've got 3 sections in here, and our plan is to put a roof over it at some point, but that has become a lower priority. So anyway, the wood processing is related to staying warm. I mean, the ability for us to be out here and it not really cost anything. We're just using the resources off the land. And as you can see, we've got a big pile of it here that we still need to process. And that doesn't even account for the utility companies. As they were cleaning around this area, they ended up dropping probably 20 logs for us to cut into firewood up by our driveway. We were asking them if we could have a chip drop down here, and while I was talking to them, found out that they were very happy to leave logs and not have to process those into chips too. So they ended up leaving us a whole bunch of logs up there that I could cut into firewood as well. Right after we bought the property and got a road built down here to this point, we had a shipping container dropped in here that it basically holds maybe, most of our household stuff. There's nothing really important in there. Now, once we get the house built, then we may go ahead and turn that into maybe a workshop or maybe a material storage area or something like that. Really haven't decided about that yet. We moved onto the property in late 21, and we really, a lot of what was driving us was the ability to prepare for food storage and all of that, and we really wanted to have a garden, but there was just no way those first couple of years that we were going to be able to do that. The second year, we did put in a makeshift garden right down kind of in this area here, but 2024 was basically our commitment to the garden construction, and so that's what we ended up with this. And the garden area itself here is, I think if I remember right, about 1/4 of an acre. Probably not quite 1/4 of an acre. But we put in raised beds. And our plants are all dead. This is, tomorrow is December 1st. So these things are done for. They're just, these were the tomatoes. They were kind of the last things to go along with the peppers. But so the garden is done for the year by far, but you can kind of see what we did here with all of the raised gardens. There's a solar water heater that we haven't had a chance to work with yet, and but there's just raised beds everywhere down in here, and that produced enough vegetables and produce for us to really get our feet on the ground with the canning process that we wanted to get started. And we have an astounding amount of preserved food now just from this one garden site. Now, to protect the garden area, we installed a fence, a perimeter fence all the way around it that is about 5.5 feet tall, and this kept the deer out. That was something that we knew we were going to be dealing with if we didn't somehow protect that. So the perimeter fence keeps the deer out, doesn't keep the small critters out. We get a rabbit or two in here every year, but or all the year this year. But the fence was important. Otherwise, the deer would just devastate the garden here. And our solar operation was something that we had very, very early on. This was something that we wanted to be able to make sure that we would have the ability to power our cabin and the other things around here from very early on. So we started out with 4 panels that were given to us, 4 solar panels that were, believe it or not, they were enough to operate the cabin down there without too much trouble. We ran out of battery power a couple of times, but it was surprising what those 4 panels did. As we got to figuring out where the sun kind of hit the open areas and all of that, and once we got done cleaning the trees out of this garden area, we found that this was the most optimal place for the solar panel array, and we've got 12 of them in there. And right now, that does a remarkable job of keeping us powered up, and it will get better. We still have a couple of trees to remove out of here that we didn't want to cut down while our garden produce was growing. So now that it's fall, we'll go ahead and get those out of here to, remove a few more of the shadows from the solar panels here. The greenhouse is something that we talked about doing for a long time. I mean, from before even moving down here, we kind of wanted to do this at some point. And so we bought this little hoop style greenhouse 2 years ago, and didn't get a chance to put it up until this year. But we ran some hydroponics in here. We did a few seed starts in here. And again, we're into the fall, so it's looking like sort of the disaster from the end of a season. And but there was our experimental hydroponics, and we did that, and we didn't get a chance to really develop the hydroponics into something that was very workable. We did grow a crop of varieties of things that was related to kind of lettuce and stuff like that. But this coming year, I think we're going to have a lot more time to put a little bit more attention to that, because that was thrown together midsummer, and it was really past the point where it was very practical. The greenhouse worked out great. We're glad that we did this, and the cost of the greenhouse itself was less than $200. I'll put a link down below if you're interested in something like this. It really worked well for us, and we're looking forward to having it up now at the beginning of the year rather than about midsummer like we did this year, so we can actually get some plants started in there early, and really get the benefit of having it here rather than just having it here for the fun of it. Now, this is something right here that we didn't get any chance to work on at all this year. We were going to do a rain catchment system off of the container here to catch rainwater for the garden. Honestly, I don't know, it was so dry this year that I don't think it would have kept up very well anyway with the way we've got it set up, but we're going to kind of rethink that, and we probably will at some point get that set up to where we can catch rainwater for the garden. It's just, I'm not sure exactly if we're going to have to rethink that one a little bit for a larger scale. All right, we're going to go into the utility shed here, and when I say utility shed, I'm not talking about utility like it sort of serves every purpose, but in this case it kind of does. But this is mainly where our electrical utilities all generate from inside this shed, and that goes for the grid power that we have coming in here, as well as the solar plant equipment that we have in here as well. So we're going to go in there and take a look at this. All right, so we are inside the utility shed, and as you may have picked up, we do have grid power that comes in here, and we do have solar power that comes in here. And we've got them both on the property, and before all of you off-gridders say, well, that's not being off-grid, that's true. We're not completely 100% off-grid, but what we've done is, everybody has to kind of choose their own pathway through this, and I wanted to have grid power in here for the convenience of it, and for the fact that we were running a lot of big tools down here when we first started, and I was in a learning curve on how the solar equipment worked. Still haven't conquered that, but we're getting to understand it better. And so what we've got is we've got grid that comes in. It comes in through this service panel right over here, and then there's a leg of it that goes over to feed our power inverter and charger whenever, if by chance the batteries get depleted under rainy or cloudy conditions over time, the grid will actually, through this, power the batteries up and recharge them and run everything if we need it to run everything. We've got it set right now so that the solar is the primary draw, or the primary source for all of our power down here on the property. And so as long as the sun is producing solar from the solar panels up in the garden, it will be charging the batteries, which are right down here. We've got 8 of them right now. This is for your solar geeks out there, this is a 48 volt system. And so that will charge these batteries, and actually this is half of the batteries that we will eventually have hooked up. I still have another set of 8 batteries that we're going to put in here, 2 more strings of batteries, just don't have them in yet. And so solar is the primary driving power source for this property. The grid kind of serves as a backup right now, and then we also have 2 backup generators. And you think, well, why all the redundancy? Well, if grid goes down, you don't have anything with that. If you get a run of cloudy or rainy days, you can potentially lose that. And so when all else fails, we hook a generator up and go. And I'm not going to go into the details of how this is wired up right now because it's a little complex, but not terribly complex. What it is everything passes through this before it goes through to the house and the other places on the property here. And this has a specific input from the grid, and it has specific outputs. And it has actually inputs for generator, inputs for the grid, inputs for the batteries. And all of that is input, and there's one main output that goes out. And so if you switch over to a generator or anything like that where you should have transfer switches to keep you from backfeeding power through into the power grid and creating a dangerous situation, this eliminates that from really being possible, because whenever we're running any kind of power input into this, it's not possible for it to flow back to the grid power with the way it's configured in here. So we really don't have to worry about that. And it can all be set up automatically to transfer from, it's already automatically to transfer from the solar immediately to the grid if the batteries are depleted. If we had an auto start generator, we could also set it up to auto start with the generator power if we needed to do that. So versatility is the thing that was really driving me on this. Whenever we get to the point where we're confident enough in our solar plant, we may disconnect from the grid entirely, and be okay with that. We've lost power down here a total of, I think, 7 times since we've been on the property. And every time the solar has picked up and run seamless without us even really knowing that the grid power was down. So anyway, that's the story on that. This building, unfortunately, has been kind of a catch-all. And so it's where we've got the deep freezes. There's one here. There's another one over there. And the freeze dryer. And so it's crowded in here. There's really more going on in here than it should be. By the time we get the basement done on the house over here, the freezers and the freeze dryer and most of the food preservation stuff is all going to end up down in the basement of the house. And this really will be strictly a power distribution building. If you've enjoyed this video, give it a like and a share, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below and the notification bell. See you next time.